Hey, brother teacher here. You know, there's this idea amongst some people in the martial arts world, here present day martial arts world, and especially MMA people, mixed martial arts people, modern day, modern day to me within the past 10, 15 years of MMA fighters and advocates. There's this idea that MMA is real fighting and traditional martial arts is not. Silly rabbit, tricks are indeed for kids. So the title of this video is martial arts and real fighting the same? Why wouldn't they be? Let me ask you a question. Fighting is as old as man is, and anything that a man develops to protect himself, or mankind it is, as it relates to self-defense, to include survival, should be deemed as something that is a valid form of fighting and or self-defense, no matter what the name is, what the methodology is, or how it's identified, as long as it works. If it works, if it has been tried, and if it has been verified through practical application that it does indeed work. For example, and I won't go into all of the ones that can come to my mind because there are many of them as it relates to martial arts. Karate, just general term, generic term. There are many styles of karate, and karate has a foundation. When karate came into existence, it was used as a form of self-defense. I won't necessarily say combat. Now, if there were a situation existing during the time that it came into existence that involved combat and karate was used, of course it would be considered combat fighting, hand to hand, if you will. So if it was Shurei-ryu, Shotokan, Goju-ryu, Ishin-ryu, Shito-ryu, Chito-ryu, Wado-ryu, or Kenpo, whatever, it was still used as a fighting art, as a system of self-defense. Even Kung Fu, or Gung Fu for some, if it's Xing Yi, Bagua Zhang, Tai Chi Chuan, Ting Shin Pai, Hung Gar, Wing Chun, Shaolin, whatever, they were still used as forms of fighting and self-defense. Even if it's Judo, whose grandparent is Jiu-Jitsu, or even Ninjutsu, or Bando, Burmese Bando, or Indonesian arts or Filipino arts, Kali and Eskrima, Arnis, or even Taekwondo, Tong Sudo, Harangdo, Kuksulwan, Aikido, Aikijitsu. All of the arts that I just mentioned, let's not forget Muay Thai, I'll throw that in there. All of the arts that I just mentioned are valued fighting systems or methods. And when you say street fighting or real fighting, why would you say that these martial arts styles and systems are not real? Are you saying that they're not appealing to the eye because in modern day times people have grown accustomed now to entertainment in martial arts, and MMA has brought entertainment along with so-called fighting arts? Are they really fighting? Can you really tell who's the best, or what system or art is the best? Rarely have I seen many arts in the MMA arena where the individual combatants, if you will, inside the octagon or ring were representing one particular form of fighting. For example, Muay Thai guys who have entered the octagon or the ring, some of them or many of them have ended up on the ground. And some of them have fared very well on the ground. But that was not their principal art. If they were only using their principal art, Muay Thai, then that should be the art that they defeat their opponent with. Just that art. So, let's take a guy who's just a boxer, who's in the octagon with a jiu-jitsu individual, and he's only using boxer. He should be able to fail his opponent with just boxing and not have to go to the ground. Oh, ha. Now that brings up a question. A different question outside of this subject. The Muay Thai guy that I mentioned and the boxer that I mentioned, could their arts perhaps be limited or one-dimensional? Possible. Because the other guy who's doing jiu-jitsu, whose function is primarily on the ground, not the whole system of jiu-jitsu is predicated on that, but if his primary goal is to get the other person on the ground because that's where he dominates, then he's taking the boxer and the Muay Thai guy out of their element. I don't want to get twisted here from what my original premise is. What I'm saying is this: martial arts that's used in the octagon, if it's jiu-jitsu, and if it's boxing, and if it's Muay Thai, or if it's karate or taekwondo, it should be able to transfer to a street situation as well. Because the techniques that are used by some of these popular personalities in the octagon or the rings in the MMA arena involve reverse punches, hammer fist, I've seen a lot, juji gatami, or straight arm bars. Those are traditional techniques in martial arts. What about front kicks? What about knees from Muay Thai or even karate? Throwing knees and elbows. Those are used in traditional arts. So when you take those techniques and you carry them to the street situation, isn't that the same as being effective as a street or real fighter? So I'm not getting it. I'm not getting why there are these MMA proponents that say that traditional martial arts does not work in the street. Could it possibly be because they watch traditional martial arts practitioners practicing katas and two-man sets and predetermined movements against a particular technique? Could it possibly be that? I think it may be part of the reason. And could it also possibly be because some of these or many of these MMA fighters have never studied or trained for any significant amount of time in the traditional arts? Could that be the reason? Have they just simply spent most of their time on the mat or in the ring? Now, if that be the case, then that's probably why they have a bias against traditional martial arts, because they've never really tasted it. Now, I believe that most traditional martial artists who are tried and true, who are devoted to their craft, I don't see why in the world they would even want to get in the ring or the octagon to prove any point. Because their art should, on some level, be sacred to them. They only teach their students. They're teaching the cultural aspect, the traditional aspect of their art, and the practical aspect for the street. They don't have anything to prove to any MMA fighter or any organization that their art is worthy of being counted amongst street fighters or even mixed martial arts guys. Why the comparison of karate versus this, or jiu-jitsu versus that, and aikido versus that, or aikijitsu and Muay Thai versus this or that, or boxing? Why do we keep throwing out all of these comparisons? This art is ineffective against this art. I see a guy that left his traditional art of Aikido and began to study Jiu-Jitsu or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, saying that Aikido was not effective in the street, in a real life situation once it's been pressure tested. I tend to disagree. Maybe he didn't have the right training in Aikido. Maybe he should have had something in addition to Aikido and kept his Aikido. I believe that Aikido is effective in a street situation. And the reason I believe that it's effective because it was founded on Aikijitsu. The concepts. Maybe some of the prearranged movements can be taken away and adapted for a street situation. Maybe that Aikidoist should just simply add something to his art. Maybe boxing. And then some ground or grappling training. And keep the Aikido. It still does serve a purpose. Now, there are some traditionalists who don't want to learn anything else but keep the tradition of their particular art alive for their senior master or their great grandmasters or the founders of those styles and systems, which is perfectly okay. But remember this, it does not come without a cost. Oftentimes when you're keeping alive traditions of someone else's art, you may at the same time be losing your own self identification, your self identity, losing who you are and your own creativity, you know? You see, I'm not Japanese. And this is where the rubber meets the road. I'm not Japanese. I've studied Japanese karate and jiu-jitsu and judo. I'm not trying to keep another man's art that he created alive for the rest of my natural life at the expense of me losing my own identity. I'm not Korean. I'm not going to try to keep the traditions of a Korean system or art alive for the rest of my life because that's not my culture. And I'm not Chinese. So I'm not going to try to keep that art or those arts alive, to include Wing Chun, for the rest of my life. What I will do, however, is I'll take my creative energy, coupled with my personality and my own character and my own sense of urgency and what is beneficial to me, and I'll borrow from all of those systems that I have studied, and I'll take those things that are useful and I will meld them together into something cohesive that works for brother teacher. And I will teach my students the same. Find your own truth. Stop allowing someone else to tell you that this works for me, it should work for you. No, just give them the foundation and let them build their own house on that foundation. Let them find their own reality. We're not all the same. And you know what? This is difficult for traditional martial artists to do because they're so indoctrinated with how they've been taught. They don't know how to let go. They've got to keep just that structure at the expense of losing self. I'm not going to lose myself. I'm going to be who I am. So, as it relates again to traditional martial arts being real fighting, they most definitely are. But ladies and gentlemen, sometimes we have to learn how to see the value in what someone else is doing and not think that we are an island unto ourselves and that we know everything, because we don't. Everyone has something to share. Everyone has something of value. We just have to be able to discern what that value is and how it benefits us as an individual and not be so quick to judge and say that that's not of any use, that technique's not going to work, that movement is not beneficial. Maybe those things are not beneficial or useful for you, but someone has proven them to be beneficial to them. So let's stop being so judgmental of someone's art and stay in our own lane. As long as you are content with where you are, then stay where you are. We all have value, again, and it's a personal thing. That's the same as religion. There are some people who believe that God is one individual, one entity. There are some people who believe in the Trinity. There are some people who don't believe in God. We can't convince anyone otherwise. All we can do is walk circumspectly and live the life according to the understanding that we have. Because we're not going to be able to convince someone of anything. All we have to do is be an example of who we are. And maybe if there is some value that someone else sees in us, they would try to glean some of that from us. That's really it. Now, real fighting versus martial arts. I mean, doesn't the word martial means war? War arts. I think the only reason that there has ever been any dispute or controversy about martial arts versus real fighting or MMA is because the so-called MMA fighters don't realize that martial arts and real fighting is really the same. One is a bit more stylized than the other one. But if a martial artist had to actually defend his or herself in a street confrontation, then it's warranted for the most part, versus someone being in a ring with a referee and rules and regulations. So just because you don't see a martial artist standing across you in the octagon, but you see Joe Blow's karate school across the street, doesn't mean that he doesn't know how to throw down if he has to in a street confrontation. He might just simply don't want to exploit his art in front of you. That was it. What do you think? Is martial arts and real fighting the same? Just want to know. Brother Teacher, comment section below. So long.